If you are anything like me, the last couple of years have seen face-to-face meetings, presentations, training courses, seminars, and even conferences replaced by calls on Teams, on Zoom, on Webex, on BlueJeans, and on a dozen other platforms. So in this video, I want to share with you what I have learned about effectively using videocast technology. If you've thought about your experiences for yourself, it won't come as a great surprise to know that the things I've learned over the last couple of years about using Zoom, about using Teams, Webex, all of these different technologies is fundamentally the same tips that I would give you or myself in the real world. They're just adapted subtly to the needs of the environment and the context and the technology. And the first is about the importance of preparation. Just because you're at your desk, in your room, behind a computer, it doesn't mean that you don't need to prepare. If you're presenting, rehearse your presentation in advance. If you're at a meeting, make sure you think through each of the agenda items before you get to the meeting. And 2 years in, I shouldn't need to tell you this, but make sure you understand how to use the technology, and it doesn't hurt. So make sure you know how to use every element of the functionality. Because there may be some things that your technology can do that can really help you make a good impact, but you are blissfully unaware of it. And if you are presenting at a meeting or at a conference or a training event or a sales presentation, make sure that you liaise with the coordinator or the chair of the meeting in advance. Make sure that they've got copies of the notes you want distributed. Make sure that you understand how they're going to introduce you, when they're going to introduce you, how much time you've got. Your relationship with the person who is chairing a meeting is critical to your ability to make a big and productive impact at any virtual event, just as it is at any real-world event. Secondly, the technology is important, and because it's a camera, the image matters. And what contributes to that are things like where you are in the room, what is in the background, the lighting, the height of the camera, and the angle of the camera. Is it looking up your nose? Is it looking at your forehead? Or is it looking you in the eye? The best place to give your attention when you are speaking to people through a camera is to look straight at the lens. If the lighting in your room is not good, then invest in low cost but highly effective LED lighting to make sure you are well lit, because cameras love light. And of course, learn how to adjust your settings, but not just the settings for the camera, settings for your microphone, because in many ways the sound quality is far more important than the video quality. People will put up with a lot if they can't see your face clearly, but if they can't hear your words clearly, that will be disaster. And if your organization won't invest in a decent microphone and possibly some headphones so that you can hear clearly without creating echoes, then as a professional, it is well worth you investing for yourself. I'll put a link to my kit recommendations in the description below. And thinking about using your microphone, you will get the best out of your microphone the closer it is to your mouth. Speak clearly and keep your microphone close. Ideally, somewhere between 6 and 12 inches, 15 and 30 centimeters. And the microphone I'm using for making this video is just out of sight, about 12 inches from my chin. The next thing to think about is how you present your content. If you need to show any images or show any text, make sure it is bold, bright, and easy to read. Remember that there may be people attending the call on which you're presenting or at which you're speaking in a meeting or whatever, who are doing so on a mobile phone, and they may be holding it in such an orientation that the screen size that they have to read from is tiny? Are the words on your slide big enough and bold enough with enough contrast that they can read them even at that scale? Now you've thought about all the things you need to do to prepare, you need to turn up. And here is a flash. All the jokes about turning up to Zoom or Teams meetings in your pajamas, it's nonsense. Dress for the event. My recommendation is that you dress well for the meeting, for the presentation, for the webinar, whatever it is you're presenting at or participating in. Partly because people will form an impression of you from what they see through the camera, and partly because how you feel when you're dressed up will convey an impression in itself. It will affect your behavior, your demeanor, and your confidence. Make sure you groom yourself as you would for an in-person meeting. And before the meeting starts, gather to you all the things you might need during the meeting: a glass of water, a notebook, pens and pencils, whatever you think you might need. And then get to the meeting early. Make sure the technology works. Make sure the sound is right. And that way you can meet and greet the people who are also turning up early. And finally, set your application to full screen so you have no distractions. Turn off your email program, turn off notifications, turn off Jabber or Slack or anything else that might be running in the background, distracting you from paying full attention to what's going on. And what about if you need to present via a virtual meeting software? Well, firstly, take your time. Don't start until you're ready, and crucially, don't start until everyone in your audience is ready. Secondly, keep your energy levels up. It's harder to be high energy when you're sitting down, but if you're slumped as you sit, of course your energy levels will slump. So sit upright. Be confident. Make sure you take regular sips of water and maintain eye contact with your audience. My top tip is to move the images of the people in your audience as close to the camera on your screen as possible, so that if you do find yourself looking at the images of the people, as we naturally do, your eyes won't move too far from the camera lens, and therefore you won't be seen to be kind of looking aside or down, sideways and down, none of which look very good. And because you are not there in person, you will need to check in with your audience frequently. Ask them questions about whether they're understanding what you're saying, whether they've got any questions or any comments. Just asking them for a thumbs up if they're happy with the way things are going will give you a good indication of whether your audience is paying attention and comfortable with what you're saying and the way that you're saying it. And finally, at the end of your presentation, if you've got questions for the audience, be deliberate with them. Ask the question very clearly and explain how you want people to answer. Do you want people to answer in chat? Do you want people to unmute and shout out? Do you want them to use a raise hands function or a thumbs up function to indicate they've got something to say? And finally, just because it's an online meeting doesn't mean that you can forget about it as soon as it stops. Do your follow-up. Make your notes before you get up and move around while everything's still fresh in your mind as soon as you turn the camera off. And clearly, if you need to do anything with your notes, like circulate notes to colleagues or act on actions that were agreed in the meeting, then schedule time to do it. In many ways, virtual meetings are a huge boost to productivity. We can meet with more people over a wider geographic area without having to spend time traveling. You can have more diversity in your meetings. You can offer training to people all over the globe really easily. And you can get there in minutes. So these are a good thing. And I believe they will change the world of work permanently. I don't think we will transition to entirely virtual meetings once people are able to get back together in the office, but I do believe we will be using them a lot. And it really pays to get good at it. Don't be the person who everyone knows is worse than everyone else in the way they conduct themselves online. Don't even be the person that nobody notices because they're as good as everybody else. Be the person everybody looks at and thinks, I wish I could handle the technology and using the technology as well as they do. Please give a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video. It really helps the algorithm to know what to serve you. I'll be creating loads more great project management content for you, so please subscribe to the channel as well and hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss any of it, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.